Hello and welcome to another DGCAD Revit Building 8.1 A to Z lesson, part 5, and we're talking all about families and the ins and outs, and we've been through a few lessons already. And just to scroll down to our current lesson, which is on corner battens, is what we're going to be talking about. And this is just some of the previous lessons that we've done leading up to this. But this is a nice one, a little bit of everything in this particular lesson. So families, wall-hosted corner battens is what we're going to talk about here. And we're going to go in and we're going to demonstrate a completed version of this, and we'll step back and create it from scratch. So this is a very basic corner batten you put on there, and you want to be able to vary the width of the batten and the thickness of it, and you also want to be able to control the vertical height of it. So we'll go in and create one of those. So I've got one ready here, and we're just going to flip over to our Revit. We're going to demonstrate it. We'll come back and talk a little bit, and then we'll go and make one from scratch. So if we go into our Revit over here, I'm just in a drawing, and I've got 3 examples over here, and I'll just look at my 3D drawing inside of here. And what happens is you have this family object inside of here, and I can change it. It's a 7.5 by 3/4 inch, so I can change that to be a 5.5 by 3/4, and it'll change sizes, and I can change it to be a 3.5 by 1/2 inch, okay, and it'll change that way as well. I can also go in and go to the properties, okay, so I'm changing the different types inside of here of that family. Now if I go inside of here, you'll notice that I cannot change the actual width and thickness inside of here, because those are type parameters. I need to actually go in and change the actual object in here to change that. But yet I have an instance parameter called batten height, and I can coordinate that with my elevation. So if I give it it was placed at the first floor level. If I give it an elevation of -2 feet and then hit OK, then it's going to have a -2 feet, and then the height is also in there. So now I'm going to go in back into here. I'm going to say, okay, the elevation, now I've lost a couple of feet, so I have to compensate for that by going up to here and maybe, setting this to be 8 feet. So the height of the batten is 8 feet based on the elevation, based on this first level. So I place it on level 1. The bottom elevation is -2, and it's 8 feet long. And then there I have it. And from there I can go in and I can change those, okay? If I use my eyedropper, I can change that to be that type of batten. Okay, it's up to you. And then I can go do the same thing by changing that one to be that one, and then it'll keep its same elevation. In fact, it looks like it's grabbing. Is it batten here to this? Yeah, it's already the same. So it's not changing the heights. It's just changing the actual type. So then that's how that works, and there's really nothing to it other than that. Once you get it in place, you can go back to maybe your first floor level, and I can click on these, and we have some controls in here where we can flip this around, flip it this way. Notice it's flipping. It's actually being hosted by this wall. I can delete this wall, and that corner batten will still stay there, for instance, and then I can move it from here to here, do whatever I want with it. Now when I take it and I flip it, it's going to flip about that way, and then flip this way. So just some flip controls. It's only hosted by one wall, okay? Even though it looks like it's hosted by 2, it's only hosted by the one wall. If I delete this wall, I'll lose my corner batten, okay? And that's just the way things are. You can't host it at this point, to my knowledge, to 2 objects. So that's all we really want. Is a nice corner batten, and we can build on that, and we can flip that around, and life goes on. So now let's go back and have a quick look at the family itself. So I'm just going to click on this object. I'm going to say Edit Family, and it's going to say yes, and it's going to bump me into that family. Okay, and we're going to make one. But all this is, inside of here, we have a solid extrusion. If I go in and hit Edit, it's a solid extrusion. And then if I check the extrusion properties, it's starting from 0, and in this case it's going up to 8 feet. Okay, cancel out of that, quit that sketch. But as well, if we go and look at our placement side, I'm looking from the placement side elevation. Okay, I can see I've put a parameter in there called batten height. Okay, the batten height is, if I go into my family types over here, I can see that there's my batten height, and if I look and modify that, that is an instance parameter. Okay, But if I look at my batten width and modify that, that is a type parameter, which means I have to change the type. And what I do is I go in here and I say new family type. If I want to change, make a bigger size, we'll see that. I can go in here and say new type, give it a name, and then change these numbers, and that'll populate down through. Then I'll have that on my pick list. But the batten height is I can change that regardless of the type that I have. A little lesson on. So I can hit cancel on that. And now the other thing that I have is my width and my thickness of that. I'm going to go back to my reference view, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to hit edit, and you're going to see there's some constraints inside of that little sketch of that mass element. Okay, and we'll talk about mass elements a little bit later, but this is all it is that I've drawn this very basic shape as an extrusion profile enclosed, and then I have a dimension from here giving thickness, and a dimension here giving thickness, and then a dimension here width and width. And then I go into I can quit this now, and I go back to my family types, okay, and then I just apply those dimensions to be these two parameters which I've created. Okay, back into here, edit the sketch. Okay, all I've done is dimensioned it, click on this dimension, and then I labeled it by going in here and changing it to be batten width. Okay, remember, we sketch it out, we get our association of our parameters, and then we apply them to our dimensions. Okay, so that's really the in and out of it. And now what we'll do is we'll take a step back and we'll just build one from scratch. So let's just have a quick look at our notes here. Okay, so we're going to include a mass element extrusion as the actual batten, which we saw. We're going to use the generic wall hosted template, our FT file. Generic wall hosted. This is a wall hosted object. Then we're going to do our standard. Create the parameters. Draw the reference lines and reference planes. Dimension and label those reference planes and lines. Align and lock the extrusion to the reference planes. Okay? And then just some notes here, reference planes, and we're going to also use the define origin to define the insertion point, the base point of this object with the couple of reference planes in there. Reference planes can be named, okay? That's the difference, one of the difference between reference lines and reference planes. Reference lines have a start and an end. Reference planes are basically infinite, and reference planes can be named. Reference lines cannot be named. We have type parameters and instance parameters in here again. An instance is the vertical height, whereas the type parameter is the geometry of the profile. The width and thickness of the batten is a type parameter. The height of the batten is instance parameter. Create different types with different batten widths within the same corner batten family, and that's the idea, is we'll have different types within that family. And then we also want to just, in this particular case, if things go funny, you can always check your wall joins and see if your wall joins are butted or mitered as well with that. Okay, and there's our little flip controls, which are the creme, just adding the extra on there, and in a last minute click, and then all of a sudden we get flip control of our object. Okay, so let's go back to our Revit and let's make a new family. So we'll say File, New, and I'm going to say Family. And I'm going to go down here to, of course, where all my family templates are. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick a basic model wall hosted. Okay, that's the template file for this particular project. So I'm going to go inside of there. And then the first thing I'm going to look at is, okay, there's the placement side of the wall. So when you go and you add this family to a wall, because that's what it's for, it's going to that's going to be the placement side. So I'm going to take this dimension, and just from experience, I'm going to pull that over there. I'm also going to tab until I see the reference plane that says wall edge, and I'm going to pull that out so I can see what's going on. Okay, that's one of the things that I want to do before I start inside of this. And now what I'm going to do, I've sketched out, I know what I want, so I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to start by making my parameters. So I'm going to go inside of here and I'm going to say, okay, I have a new type parameter, and the type is going to be called, the new type, I should say, is going to be called a 7 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch. That's going to be this type. Okay, and then I'm going to make another new type, and I'm going to call it a 5 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, and that's that one. And then I'm going to add another one in, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add in a 3 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Done. Okay, so now I have those 3 types ready to go, and now I'm going to go in and make some parameters. So I'm going to say add, and I'm going to make it a family parameter we'll talk about shared later, and I'm just going to call this parameter is going to be called width. And it's a type parameter. It's going to be stored in the dimensions category, and it's going to be a length. That's it. Done. I'm going to add another parameter in, and this is going to be called thickness. And it is also a type. It's going to be stored in dimensions, and it's a length. I'm going to add another parameter in. This one is going to be called height. And it is an instance parameter because I want to change it on individually and not have the other ones change. And it's going to be stored in dimensions. It's also a length. I hit OK. Okay. Now, my default width is going to be, well, I'm in a 3.5 type inside of here, so I'm going to say the width in this one is 3.5 inches. And the thickness is going to be 1/2 inch. And the height, I'm going to put in arbitrary height of 8 feet, but that one will be changeable. Okay. Then I will go to my 5.5, and I'll say, okay, the width of the 5.5 is 5.5 inches. The thickness is 1/2 inch, and the height again is going to be 8 feet. Then I can go to my 7. And then say, okay, 7.5. Now, you could save some time by doing this first and then making the types after, and it'll pick up some of these numbers. So you'll get a feel of different ways to do it. So this is one is 3/4 inch thick and also has a height of 8 feet. Okay, so now I can go in here and I can click on here and I can watch those numbers. There's my 3.5. Okay, so now I have my parameters made. I apply that. I hit OK. Now, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go to my placement side elevation. I can do this in different orders, but I'm just going to draw in a new reference plane. I'm going to draw it up here. I'm going to dimension it from here to here, and I'm going to place it over there. I'm going to take that, I'm going to say you're a label, and you are the height. So that one's done. The other 2 are applied within the extrusion. So I'm going to go back to here now. I'm going to draw this extrusion over to the side and move it because it gets a little confusing because it gets a bit busy. But inevitably, I'm going to have to place it over here, and I'm going to have to take the 2 lines and form an origin. But let's do our extrusion first. So all I have to do now is I can say, okay, I'm going to do a solid form extrusion. This is the body of the actual batten. And inside of here, I don't really care. I'm just going to make sure my chain is on. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw around. Doesn't even matter what size I make it, but put it on there. Okay, and now I'm going to dimension it. So I'm going to say dimension from here to here is there. Dimension from here to here is here. Here to here is here, and here to here is here. Okay, and now I can take this and take these 2 guys, control, click, and say you guys are width parameters. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, you and you are thickness parameters. And it's automatically going to size that properly. Okay. I'm going to go in here and check my extrusion properties and see that the extrusion start is at 0 and the end is at 1 foot. And that's going to be flexible. But I'm just going to leave that like that. Hit OK. And now I'm going to finish the sketch. It's going to do that. I can go look at that in 3D. And there's my little corner batten. Okay. Now what I have to do is I have to position it properly so that when I come back and insert it later, okay, so I'm going to use my good old align command and say align this with this. Boom, moves it over there. Okay, the other one is actually already aligned on here. Now what I need to do is then I need this to be my base point. So I'm going to click on this line and this line, and I'm going to go into here, the properties, and I'm going to say defines origin. That is now going to be my base point of my object. So now I can say, okay, let me save this. Do a file save as, and we'll call that corner batten DG. Save it in my Revit families folder. Okay, now let's have a look and see let's go to our 3D view. Okay, let's click on this and then we can spin around about that object. Okay, now right now it's sitting in the middle of the wall, but that's okay. When we place it, we'll push it over to here. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at my objects. I'm going to move that over to there so I can see it. And I'm going to take this and push it over here, and I'm going to say, okay, well, what if I change that to be a 5.5? What if I change that to be a 7.5? And of course I have to hit apply after that. So I change it to a 7.5, I hit apply. Change it to be a 5.5, I hit apply. Looks like it's changing sizes. Let's try our heights. Let's make it 8 feet. Hit apply. Now my height isn't working. Let's have a look at that. And let's hit OK. And I think we need to go have a look at that and do some alignment. We went a bit quick there. So let's go back to our placement side elevation. And this is what I need to do. Of course, I need to align this with the top of my extrusion. And then I need to lock that. Big step I missed on that one. Holy cow. So click out, hit save. Okay, go back to my 3D view. And now I can go move that over to the side, and let's flex the model here. Let's change this to be 6 feet and then apply. Okay, looks good. And then when we bring it to our model, we'll be able to give it a negative elevation, bring it down over to there. Okay, so let's hit OK. And let's go back here. One more thing, let's add our flip controls in here. So over here we simply have our control buttons. This is like what you would use on a stairway. It's a directional flip, whereas this is kind of a more like this will flip direction. This just kind of flips about the object. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to say, okay, I need to have one of those, and I'm going to place it there and click on here. And it really doesn't give you any sort of snaps or anything. I'm just going to click that, put it there, and I'm going to save it. Okay, and now I'm going to go out to start a new project. I'm going to go File, New Project. Use basic template file to start with a drawing from scratch. And all I need in there is a couple of walls. So I'm going to draw some walls. I'm going to make them be 9 feet high. Put that over there. Maybe bring this back a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to bring that component into here. I'm going to go back to my corner batten DG, which is right here. Okay, I'm going to go to my 3D view, and I'm going to say I've saved it, and I'm going to say load to project, loaded to project 2. Hit OK. So now I'm in my project 2, and I can say component. Okay, there's my batten, and there's my 3 different sizes. Okay, I'm going to take the 7.5 and I'm going to host it to this wall, place it on there. Okay, after that there is a manual process of having to move that. Now I could try that again and get it the first time, but there's nothing wrong with at some point going in and saying align, you know, this to this, and then you could lock it, I suppose. But then you can take this and now you can flip this around back and forth, and you can flip it back and forth this way. Okay, we can look at it in 3D, zoom in, we can click on it, we can change it to be a different type, okay, which has the different heights in there, and we could go back and edit those, or we can go inside of here and click on that. You'll notice I can change the height over here. Let's move that over. So I'll go in here and I'll say, okay, you have a height of 6 feet. And you have an elevation of -2 feet, which means it should only be sticking up 4 feet. And there we have that. Okay, and then again, from there you can turn around and change the type here, and it's not going to change the height. Okay. First time it picks up the original height from the family. So again, back inside of here, change the sizes, go into here, change the height to be, you know, 8 feet, leave the elevation at -2, hit OK, and it's going to go up a little bit. If I want a new type, I can click on here, I can go into here, now I can say edit, and I'm going to say duplicate, and I'm going to maybe call this a, you know, 9.5 by 1/2 inch. Hit OK, and now I can actually change that width to be 9.5 inches. So I've made a new type. And then I can hit OK. And then I've actually got that new type in there. So now I can click on there, and I have a 9.5, I have a 7.5, I have a 5.5, and I have 3.5. And then I can flex the height in between. Okay, and our next question would be, well, now how do we save that back? Because if I actually go to this family and say edit family, I can go back inside of here and I can see that that 9.5 isn't being populated back here. So what I might want to do inside of here is say, okay, I'm going to close this family project, which is done. And now I'm going to go in here. Now remember, this is a family and it was made from a generic template. If I go to my families inside of this project, I can go down to generic models, and sure enough, there's my corner batten, and there is all my sizes. Okay, I can click on here, right click, and I can say new type and go in and make a new one. But look, I can also hit save. This is how you export the family. You say save, and then I go get it. And if I place it inside of here, depending, it's going to overwrite the old one. Okay, now let's have a look. Edit family, yes. Go back in, family types, full circle, there it is. Okay, so once you've made changes in the project, we can say load to project. Okay, back inside of here you make modifications, you go down and you find it, you have to know where to look, and then go inside of here, then take this and save it back, more or less export that family out. For any family, you can go into any family type inside of here, right click, and then save it, and it gets saved as an RFA file. So that puts an end to our lesson 32 of our Revit 8.1 A to Z lessons, and a couple of interesting things we've learned in there. So stay tuned for more family specific training videos.